SummerSlam is fast approaching and things have started to heat up exponentially. With a red-hot Toronto crowd, a monstrous last man standing main event and the Beast incarnate looking to wreak havoc, this week's show had its fair share of moments. So without further ado, let's walk you through the results and highlights for this week's show. Note the videos will be updated as soon as they are available. Opening segment: The Miz came out and refused to let the show go on until Jason Jordan appeared. Daddy Kurt Angle, though, had other plans as he instead revealed a massive special guest for this week's Miz TV, and it was none other than the Beast incarnate, Brock Lesnar. The Universal Champion's music hit and the fans went ballistic. The Miz vs. Heyman in a promo battle. Hell yeah, The Miz showed no jitters as he went on to cut a promo, attacking the Beast's advocate and focused on the upcoming Universal title match at SummerSlam. He claimed that Lesnar is bound to leave SummerSlam as the former Universal Champion and said that he would put his money on Reigns, Joe or Strowman, each name drop eliciting a rapturous reaction from the fans if he was a gambling man. It was time for the ECW legend to take the mic, and yes, ECW chants reverberated across the arena. Heyman asked Miz if he and his wife ever role-play before taking jabs at the Alistair Stooges, Curtis Axel and Bo Dallas, likening them to Joe and Reigns. Heyman then requested the three members of the Miztourage to get into SummerSlam roleplay mode and that the Beast will give the fans a preview of the destruction that awaits the title contenders at the upcoming PPV. The Beast was unleashed. Suplexes, a trifecta of F5s and a solid statement sent to ahead of the biggest PPV of the summer from the champion, who has the odds heavily stacked against him. Seth Rollins vs. Sheamus. The two former WWE champions faced each other in a rematch from last week. Out came the Kingslayer first, looking to burn the Celtic Warrior down. The Raw Tag Team Champions were out next, and you can sense it already that Dean Ambrose will be needed later on in the match. Rollins went to work early on Sheamus with a fast-paced approach as he took Sheamus down with a clothesline off of the apron. Rollins followed up the offense with a springboard clothesline, but the scales tipped in the heel's favor after Sheamus threw Rollins out of the ring and followed it up with a powerslam onto the apron. After a brief commercial, Sheamus was still on top of the Architect as he went for the brogue kick, unsuccessfully though, as Rollins ducked and kicked Sheamus in the gut. Sheamus answered with a sling of clobbering forearms and a white noise. Sheamus then went up on the top rope but Rollins had him scouted and looked for the suplex. The Celtic Warrior was alert and pushed him down. Rollins came back strong with a kick to the face that threw him off of the top. He got a near fall and looked to finish things up as he went up to the top rope for the 5-star frog splash after a super kick and the sling blade. However, he completely forgot about Cesaro, who distracted Rollins and put him off guard. Sheamus took advantage of the chaos and rolled up Rollins for the 3 count. Result: Sheamus def. Seth Rollins. A distraught Rollins goes for the suicide dive on the Raw Tag Team Champions. The numbers game proved to be too much as the champions dissected Rollins while looking at the ramp for the impending arrival of Dean Ambrose. Even though the situation demanded it and the crowd were chanting his name, there was no sign of the lunatic fringe. Is he at a Tim Hortons or something? Rollins confronts Ambrose backstage regarding his no-show. Jason Jordan made his way out next to the ring for his match against Curtis Axel, who was pretty banged up after the beatdown he got at the hands of Brock Lesnar. Sadly for Axel, the doctor refused to clear him to compete tonight. Kurt Angle made an impromptu decision and sent out a local wrestler, Jean-Pierre Goulet, who was standing aimlessly backstage, out to face his son. An unexpected WWE debut indeed. Goulet, a native of Quebec, got one of the best pop of the night, but that was all as he got squashed by Angle Jr. The fans though didn't like one bit of it as they chanted "Let's go Jobber" all throughout the match. Result: Jason Jordan def. Jean-Pierre Goulet. Bayley addressed her injury and future. The Hugger finally addressed the elephant in the room and shed light on her future as she recuperated from a separated shoulder that happened last week during her match against Nia Jax. Bayley made her way to the ring with a cast on her hand as expressed her sadness about missing this year's SummerSlam. She cut a generic promo thanking the fans for their support and messages. She forgot she's in Toronto, an arena filled with a savage and brutally honest bunch. They booed her mercilessly and Bayley had no option but to respond. Charlie Caruso asked Bayley about who she would like to see be her replacement against Alexa Bliss and no prizes for guessing who she named. Sasha Banks. The Boss came out to a decent pop and hugged the huggable one before her triple threat match kicked off. Sasha Banks vs. Alicia Fox vs. Emma. Alexa Bliss was on commentary for this one. The match kicked off with Emma going after Banks early on as Fox chilled in the corner. Banks countered and sent Emma to the outside the ring, but got intercepted by Fox. Emma thwarted the boss and suplexed her onto the apron. Ouch! Chants of "Let's go Emma" echoed around the arena. Emma and Fox then went back and forth, and you could literally hear crickets chirping. No, literally. Fortunately, Sasha Banks returned to the ring just in time. She took Fox out with a double knee in the corner. A sneaky Emma tried to steal the pinfall to no avail. Fox kicked out, and the match continued. Sasha locked the Banks statement on Fox, but Emma got back into the ring in the nick of time and rolled her up. However, the Australian beauty suffered the wrath of the boss and got a Banks statement for all her troubles. That's all she wrote, folks. Result: Sasha Banks def. Alicia Fox and Emma. Enzo Amore. Big Show vs. Luke Gallows. Carl Anderson, the bona fide stud, came out to a great pop and introduced Big Show. The world's largest athlete since 1996 spoke about teaching Big Cass a lesson in respect before the club interrupted the proceedings. The Good Brothers cut an overly scripted and cringy promo, and an impromptu match between the two teams was booked. Also, Enzo compared Anderson and Gallows to Dr. Evil and Mini-Me. The match kicked off with an aggressive show taking it to the Good Brothers. Enzo was the scapegoat as he took a lot of punishment from Gallows and Anderson before Big Cass appeared on the apron. Gallows took advantage of the distraction and knocked Big Show off the apron. Enzo went for the roll-up on Gallows, but Anderson stepped in and connected with a sweet knee. Trouble in Paradise meets Kinshasa for the pinfall. Result: the club def. Big Show and Enzo Amore. After the match, Cass attacked Enzo and the Big Show. He began to stalk Amore but got ambushed by the world's largest athlete, who connected with a WMD for the second week in succession. Finn Balor sends a message to Bray Wyatt. It was time for WWE to pander to the dark and unorthodox aspects of storytelling as Finn Balor and Bray Wyatt's feud progressed. The Demon King was out first, and he was introduced as the founder of the Balor Club. Hints of a heel turn and a reunion with Gallows and Anderson. You say maybe Balor oozed charisma like no one's business, and the fans absolutely loved it. They chanted "Too Sweet," and the Balor reciprocated by putting up the iconic hand sign. Balor addressed his rivalry with the Eater of Worlds and said, "If there's one thing that I've learned in life, it's that when fear comes knockin', you kick fear in the face." The lights went out, the creepy Wyatt intro played, and the Eater of Worlds was in the ring. But wait, Balor was one step ahead of Wyatt as he sat waiting for him on the top rope. Balor was one step ahead of Wyatt all throughout the segment, forcing Wyatt to his disappearing act again. The lights went off and a pre-taped promo of the Face of Fear aired. Thankfully, it was short. The same old grim verbiage and run. Dean Ambrose vs. Cesaro. Ambrose and Cesaro locked up and traded a series of holds to kick things off. Cesaro got a couple of pinfall sequences in before it was all square again. Another lockup ensued before Cesaro pushed Ambrose into the corner and unleashed a barrage of uppercuts on the Lunatic Fringe. Cesaro took control of the match after a brief flurry from Ambrose. The Raw Tag Team Champion connected with a lariat and kept the Ambrose on the mat. Ambrose avoided a punch and executed the swinging neckbreaker. A tope suicida from Ambrose wasn't enough to get things in Ambrose's favor as Sheamus distracted Ambrose and got things back in favor of his best buddy as Raw went into a commercial break. A crazy spot followed as Ambrose hit a monstrous superplex from the top rope. Cesaro sold it like he's just taken a bump on an ocean of thumbtacks. Boss Cesaro reversed an Ambrose crossbody into a backbreaker for two. A back and forth exchange, and Cesaro connected with another backbreaker. The Swiss Cyborg was on a roll as he stunned Ambrose with his trademarked uppercuts, followed by two epic gut-wrench power bombs for two near falls. Ambrose looked to get things back on track in Luke Taic style as he went for the suicide dive, only to be stopped in his tracks by an uppercut. Back in the ring, Cesaro went for the deadlift suplex from the top rope, but Ambrose countered with the cradle. It was time for Ambrose to rally. He took Cesaro down with the Lunatic Lariat. Sheamus came to the aid of his partner as he distracted Ambrose and stopped a Dirty Deeds attempt. The Toronto crowd popped as Cesaro locked in the sharpshooter on Ambrose. However, the Lunatic Fringe just won't give up in a repeat booking pattern to the Rollins vs. Sheamus match. The Celtic Warrior distracted Ambrose, but the outcome wasn't the same as the Lunatic Fringe rolled Cesaro up for the pinfall victory. Result: Dean Ambrose def. Sheamus. The tag champs administered the customary heel beatdown on Ambrose post-match, and unlike what Ambrose did earlier in the night, Rollins came out to make the save. Toronto knew what they wanted to see, but would it happen? The Lunatic Fringe offered a fist bump. The audiences serenaded the two men with yes chants. What did Rollins do? He declined the offer and walked away, shaking his head in hesitation. What? Hey, tease, we just can't wait for the iconic fist bump to happen now. Akira Tozawa vs. Ariya Daivari. Ariya got the early advantage with a shoulder block followed by the backbreaker in the early goings for a 2 count. Daivari began to work on the one contender for the cruiserweight title injured shoulder, despite the cast being off. Tozawa mounted a comeback as he hit the Frankensteiner into suicide dive. Daivari initiated a rally which was abruptly halted by a massive suplex by Tozawa. Tozawa goes up top, sent in 123 a crowd cooler after that epic Ambrose Cesaro battle before the last man standing main event result. Akira Tozawa def. Ariya Daivari. Nia Jax vs. Mickie James vs. Dana Brooke. Sasha Banks' opponent for next week's One Contenders match was up next and we all knew Nia Jax was the obvious choice. Anyway, WWE felt the need to squeeze this match too. Mickie James, who was last in action on Raw on the June 26th episode of Raw, returned to lose. The same goes for Dana Brooke. James and Brooke worked in tandem to begin the match as the two threw Jax out of the ring. Did they actually think that would be enough to keep the hybrid athlete down? No freaking way. Jax connected with the fallaway slam on Brooke, but Mickie James answered with a tip-rope maneuver and attempted to steal the pin by covering Brooke. Jax, though, made quick work of both James and Brooke and picked up the win after pinning the latter. Result: Nia Jax def. Dana Brooke and Mickie James. Roman Reigns vs. Braun Strowman. Last man standing match. The monster among men couldn't wait for Reigns to come to the ring as he began inflicting pain on the Samoan Superman on the ramp itself. He ragdolled Reigns into the barricade. Strowman's taste for Samoan blood has broken through uncharted levels as he continued to beat Reigns down. Reigns somehow made it to his feet and avoided a 10 count as we Raw went into a commercial. Strowman was right on top of the proceedings as we returned, but the momentum shifted as soon as the steel steps were brought into the equation. Reigns pummeled Strowman with the steps and for the very first time in the match, the referee began the count with Strowman looking to beat it. Strowman got back to his feet at 8 but Reigns was ready to unleash the Superman punch in the corner. Strowman caught Reigns in the middle of the air and slammed him into the mat. Reigns was down for another 8 count before getting back up on his feet. The big dog finally connected with the Superman punch before positioning himself for a spear. However, the monster among men stopped him with a dropkick. Incredible. Strowman was forced to the outside after Reigns sent him crashing into the post. Reigns hit a drive-by and grabbed a table from underneath the ring. Table was in the position as Strowman taunted Reigns. The big dog, though, showed an incredible feat of strength as he picked Strowman up and Samoan dropped him through the table. Was it heading for a draw with both men down and possibly out? Both men get up at 8 with Reigns poised to spear Strowman through the barricade, but the monster among men amazingly flung an office chair into the Reigns skull. Best moment of the night. Reigns somehow managed to beat the count as the two rivals took the fight into the crowd. The action shifted to the stage as Strowman uses the screen to wear an already battered Samoan down. A defiant Reigns refused to go down. What did Strowman do? He looked to put him through the announcer's table. Reigns shut him down with not 1, but 2 Superman punches. The big dog was pumped up now and sprinted Usain Bolt down the ramp to stun Strowman with a spear. It looked like Reigns was about to be the last man standing before Joe, who was nonchalantly part of the audience, blindsided Reigns and locked in the Coquina clutch and put Roman to sleep. The referee started a fresh count as Strowman made it to his feet. The monster among men ended up being the last man standing as Reigns was unable to recover. Another mind-blowing match from the perennial rivals despite the screwy finish. Result: Braun Strowman def. Roman Reigns.